Hey friends, I just wanted to make a little video on soul bonds and moving through soul bonds and energetic activations, and specifically in regards to working with other souls when the human is asleep, okay? Because for many of us, this is a really deeply painful journey. And I want to preface this really quick by saying if you already don't know what I just said, then like please don't listen to this video because like it's not going to make any sense to you and it may just create confusion in your life. So, this is a very specific video for people consciously moving through soul bonds, soul connections, and activation energy. Okay, so if you're not in that, none of this will mean anything to you. Okay, so um, that being said, I also want to say this that like I wanted to make this video because there's a lot of people doing videos around soul bonds, right? Soulmates, soul bonds, and there's a lot of like distortion and confusion, and even people I listen to, it's just like, and this is why I preface with this, right? Because there's a lot of people in really toxic bonds, toxic situations, and they're calling them things like soulmates, okay? And I don't even like, this is why I don't even like any of those terms because there's so much trash around all of it, right? So I'm not going to use any of those words. I am going to talk about soul bonds, okay? Here's what I want to preface with before the preface, there's many prefaces to that. Okay? So, first of all, from the human perspective, right? And this is like a human moving through their journey perspective. Okay? If you're a human on your path of healing and discovery in relationships, right? We attract unhealed people because we're unhealed, and so um, we're learning what we do and do not want in our lives. We're learning what our behavior is that we've carried and that what needs to be reprogrammed. And we're learning, what we actually want in love, what kind of dynamics we want. We're moving out of things like emotional wounding and codependency, right? And so often, right, we attract things like, if you're an overgiving, you often will attract like a narcissist, right? Because they're showing you something. They're a mirror to you of what you need to heal, right? So that's the very human level of what we're talking about. So when we move through soul bonds, we're literally moving through the same thing. We're actually just experiencing it on a much, much deeper level. So this is really important to recognize and talk about because this is where there's so much confusion because people experience, and again, I'm speaking on this because I had to move through many of these, like many of these. And it's very confusing. The information out there is trash. And so it's hard to understand what you're experiencing on a soul level, on a human level, on an emotional level, when you're moving through it, right? And the same thing is happening again on the human self, right? It's like on an emotional level, you're moving through a connection and you're like, oh, I love this person so deeply. And it's like, um, that's the wounding, right? There's so many layers to this, you guys. So like, you people, you beings, okay? So if you're not in clarity, then you're gonna start creating distortion around what I'm saying, but that's your journey, okay? But we're so often stuck in emotional wounding and then we call it love, right? So the same thing is happening with soul bonds, where we're calling someone our soulmate and they're actually just a soul bond that we need to move through and that we're healing something in, okay? So that's really what I want to talk about. It's still wounding. You're still moving through wounding. It's just happening on a deep soul level. And this was so hard for me. This has been like honestly so difficult because I have had very, very, very profound, deeply, spiritually, physically, emotionally profound experiences with other souls that I was like, there's no way this is like not my person, right? Like, how could I be experiencing this level of soul connection and this is not my person, right? And I am talking visual astral projection. I am talking seeing lifetimes since all of time together with certain beings. I am talking about like I have seen our Akashic past, present, and future together. I'm talking about I have seen future visions of possible timelines. I am talking that profound experience of the heart that I couldn't even fathom, right? So this is why I really, really want to speak on this. Because in only one of these situations, the human was awake. Every other soul bond situation I've been in, the human is dead ass asleep. Dead ass asleep, right? And so that's why I want to talk to you about this and recognizing activation codes and recognizing what that soul is coming into your field for so that you can understand that and process that and move through it, right? Because when you bring someone into your field and you're like, oh my God, like I have never experienced this in my entire life. Like what in the actual fuck, you know? And then the human is like, and they have no idea what's going on. And you're like, dude, I like saw this. And they're like dead asleep. So it's very confusing. It's very, very confusing. And even the one man who was awake, who is awake, was still, well, was the most painful one, right? Because he was awake and we consciously shared the soul bond, right? It was a conscious soul connection, but it was not meant to be, right? It was still an activation. And that was deeply painful because our souls and our humans recognized each other. We literally, the moment we met, soul recognition, both of us, which is also very rare, right? So for you to have an experience where like my soul recognizes you, your soul recognizes me, and we remember this deep love from many, many lifetimes. Like I've seen so many lifetimes with you, and knowing that when we were coming together in this lifetime, we're experiencing a love that is incomprehensible to our human experience, but then not attaching it to a bond that's created in this lifetime, right? And in that specific bond, it was a necessary activation for both of us in different ways. But the circumstances weren't aligned because it was an old storyline. The bond was an old storyline, one in which I was not truly honored, right? And my feminine power, or one in which, as the feminine, it meant self-sacrifice. So even though his human was completely conscious of our soul bond, you know, we met each other in dream space, we met each other in energetic realms, right? So even still, you know, my human want was like, of course this is my person, right? Like, of course this is like the man that I'm gonna spend this lifetime with. But he's not. He's not. He literally was me closing old timelines, right? We had lived many lifetimes. And even though there's very deep love, there was also very deep distortion. So he had come through in this lifetime for me to heal the distortions of the past, right? In the case of other men that were literally asleep, completely fucking asleep, and I'm over here like, I don't know if you like felt that, and like they have no idea what's going on, you know? Um, it's very confusing. It's very, very confusing, right? So, and this can be feminine or masculine, but often this is the feminine, right? Where we have these experiences because we are more intuitively connected into the spiritual realm, and then the masculine is often more physically connected, and so often the feminine is waking up the masculine, and so often the masculine is not even awake to the soul bond experience, and so it's a deeply painful journey for the feminine, honestly, because we've got to move through the activation alone, and that's what I want to say about the last test for me, right? The last counterfeit for me was so deeply painful because I was like, and I was at the point where I was like, listen, do not bring another man into my field if he's not the one. Like, I am done with this bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not clearing any more soul bonds. Like, I'm done. Please do not bring another man to me unless he's the one, right? And I was being shown, it could not have been any more clear. So I believed so deeply because I was shown over and over and over again, and I was like, and I kept being like, I don't understand. Why are you showing me this man? If it, like, just show me the truth, right? Well, the truth is, his soul was activating codes for me. I activated codes for him, right? But the truth was, he was my last activation into leaving behind the distorted masculine energy, right? He was my last distorted counterfeit. And I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand why the dynamic was going the way that it was. And I was like, why are you showing me this person? And like, this is the dynamic. But there was final wounding in my own heart that I had to heal through, right? There was a final activation I needed to move through to fully release myself from the distorted masculine. So, I'm like, why? Like, again, like, why did he come through my field? It was never for the human. It was never for the human. It was for the soul activation, right? So going back to what I was saying at the beginning of this message around the wounding, right? The human wounding. Because we are disconnected from the spiritual self, right? In so many ways, or we're feeling separated from the spiritual self. We're coming back to love. We're coming back to ourselves. We're coming back to union of both self and with our counterpart, in this realm, if that's the journey you're on here, right? That journey takes letting go of really, really deep distortions, both on a spiritual level and an emotional level, right? So I was having this really, really profound soul experience with this man. And the humanist was asleep. And so my human kept trying to create the bond, right? And his human would not receive it, right? Because he was stuck asleep and in distortion. And I kept trying to get him to wake up and get him to see, right? And that was the wound. That was the wound, right? That was the last counterfeit wound, was me fighting to get the masculine to see the distortion, to see the truth, and to see me, the feminine, right? And so I had to attract that last counterfeit in a way where his human completely denied our soul connection. Like 100% his human, like absolutely denied the soul connection. Total, total denial, right? And me trying to figure out how to honor the soul bond, right? And here's what I want to say, because when we're in wounding, we just can't see it clearly. We just can't. This is the painful thing about it, is that like we just want the answer. Like I said, when he came through my field and I was like, don't show me this as if it's not real. And again, I'm seeing possible Akashic timelines. I'm seeing, I'm seeing us interdimensional experiences. It's like undeniable soul connection, right? But this was truly just an activation for me. And my human was being activated into a final wound release around the masculine. But because I was still stuck in the wounding, right, I couldn't understand until I healed the wound. And so his activation actually became me finally healing that wound, finally healing the separation and love, feeling locked out from love, chasing love, right? The dynamic of I have to fight for love, I'm chasing love, that I have to do something to be worthy of love, right? So of course I attracted a human in denial, right? Because I needed a mirror that was showing me my behavior in those dynamics, right? So, and I said I wasn't really going to talk about soul bonds, but I do want to talk about the twin flame journey, because when this dude came through my field, because I was intentionally, what I say is my counterpart. That's the word that I use, which is why I say the counterfeit, right? Because I've been for many years calling in my actual counterpart, right? So if you're actually on a journey of calling in your match and you are wanting to embody the highest version of yourself, well, not only are you having to slay through distorted men, right? You're slaying through, or masculine, or reverse the roles. I'm not sorry. Reverse the roles as they are fit for you, okay? If you're the feminine and you're attracting the masculine, right? You've got to not only slay these versions of the distorted masculine, you're actually slaying the distorted versions of yourself and feminine, right? So that's why things are showing up a certain way. So I was intentionally calling in my counterpart. So when this man came through and our journey started looking like the twin flame journey, and so that's why I started unpacking that, because I was like, what the fuck is this bond? Why is it happening like this? What the actual fuck is going on? Why am I experiencing this? And he's literally dead ass asleep. What the fuck is this, right? So I really had to go and try to figure out and unpack that, right? And so, of course, that's why many of us look up soul bonds, right? We're trying to understand. That's why I want to make this video, truly. So when you look at the twin flame journey, what people are calling that, it's super unhealed. It's a super unhealed journey, right? It's the journey of you, and this is how I'm going to put it. I'm going to speak from the feminine perspective, okay? For non-confusion. So again, the feminine is usually the chaser in this dynamic, right? The masculine is the runner, which can be, again, reversed. Masculine and feminine, or the feminine can also be the runner as well, right? But this is the story that's told, is that the feminine is chasing the masculine is then running away. She's got to release that and step into her power to recall the masculine into her. The truth is, that entire dynamic is 100% distorted, right? 100% wounded, right? So as I'm moving through this bond, I'm like, this, I was angry, right? I was like, this journey is stupid. This entire thing, this entire twin flame journey is fucking stupid. I don't fuck with it. What is going on, right? What is this? And everyone's, and like I said, all the shit out there also fucking stupid. All the people that are attaching identities to this storyline, also fucking stupid, right? So I'm just moving through all of this and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't fuck with any of this. What is this, right? Well, that's the distortion. That's the distortion, right? And the same thing happened, not the same thing, right? But what happened with the man that I spoke on who was awake was, okay, everything's right, but it's all wrong. This is not my life, right? I was like, oh, this seems like the right man and the way he treats me and all these things, but it wasn't my life, right? And I remember the moment of like just extreme deja vu, and I'm like, this is not my reality. This is not my reality. This is not my world. I'm in a distorted reality. I have to get out of here. It was so, so clear, right? And so that was the truth when this had come through, when the sobering truth came out about this last counterfeit. And I was like, you know how I felt? I felt like this. Classic. Fucking classic. I mean, like, no, I mean, it was like I had, and let me say that I had deep, 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 painful healing to move through, like the most painful work I've ever done in my life to reach the point where I was finally released. And when I was finally released, the truth came through that was so fucking laughable. I was like, these dudes are so classically fucking lame. It's ridiculous, right? That was the story I was breaking, was connecting with the distorted masculine identity. When this came through, I was like, oh my God, thank God. Thank Goddess. I am released from this distorted fucking storyline. Thank Goddess I'm not living in a stupid fucking twin flame journey. That shit is fucking dumb. That shit is not soul truth. That is not soul truth. That is a journey of wounded connection that needs deep fucking healing. And that's why you see so many people stuck in this story of the twin flame journey and longing and being locked off from love and all these woundings around. That's because the story itself is wounded. It's not love. It's not true counterpart journey. How many people do you know in an actual union are talking about the twin flame journey? Like, if you're following that storyline, how many people are you listening to that are actually in a divine union talking about the twin flame journey? Because I don't know any. When I was like, these were all like single people talking about it, or they were like, like, oh, my man, this, and it was toxic, right? Whatever the storyline was toxic. You don't see anybody or couples talking about, okay, this was our journey, this is what we had to heal, and this is how we came into union, right? Because it's not real. It's a soul activation to heal the past, heal old wounds, and step into our power. That's why we're going through that journey. And this is why it's really, really difficult for the feminine. This is why the masculine is the runner, because you've got to, as the feminine, recognize, oh my God, I am worth so much fucking more than this. I am worth more than a man that thinks I'm too much, that can't handle me, that's running away, who's not ready for me. Oh, he's not ready for me. Okay, then bye. And if you're not ready to say, okay, then bye, then that's your wounding you've got to heal, right? That's the activation. The activation is, oh, wait, I'm choosing more. I'm choosing better. I'm choosing myself. I'm coming into my power. When you truly step into your feminine power, you're not even going to fuck with that dude anymore. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be like, gross. 100% gross. I can't believe I ever let someone treat me like that. I can't believe I ever thought that was my person after the way he treated me. Like, are you kidding me? Right? But that's the wound that's being activated for you to heal. And that's often what whatever you call that journey is, right? We talk about it being activating something in you. It's going to activate every wound in you so that you can see it and you can heal it. And then you can choose a different path in love, a different reality in love. The truth is, the journey with your actual match, your actual counterpart, is not going to treat you that way. That's the truth. That's the truth. So, why are most soul bonds that people talk about distorted? Because collectively, we've all been in distortion. So, there's so much wounding that needs to be done to even reach the point of releasing these old bonds and stepping fully into alignment and union. And I could, like, truly, I can tell you the amount of times that I've been like, well, I mean, it's not like that many, but there's definitely been a few times where I'm like, this is 100% my person. I think three times that I've been like, they're like undeniable soul bond, and I'm like, there's no way this isn't it, right? But I really, really had to still heal something there, right? So this is why I want to say about detaching from the human. And I had this conversation many times with friends, right? On different soul bond journeys, right? Because it's so intense. It's so intense when you're in it. And I couldn't fathom. I mean, each time, actually, like the last two I just shared with you, I could not fathom how I could have this deep of a soul connection, but that this person wasn't meant for me. Like, I could not physically fathom it in my body, in my being, in my mind. I could not comprehend, right? And that was the wound. And so I want to say to you, like, and that was the thing that I talked about with people. It's like detaching from the human, right? Like, oh, his soul this, but his human is not even there, you know? And so, you know, I had friends be like, you know, you got to let the human go and recognize, you know, whatever. And I was like, no, like, this has to be, how can he show up in this form and it's like this? How can his soul show up in this form? And this is, you know, like, I literally could not comprehend it until the wound was healed, right? And then I'm like, okay, I get it, you know? And so I can sit here and tell you to detach from the human, but you're probably also like, I can't hear it. You know what the shit would make me so mad is that, like, either he'll show up, heal the wound, and either he'll show up or someone who can match you will. And I was like, that's bullshit. You know, it's like bullshit. No, I'm not just gonna accept some man just showing up in it. Like, I'm not gonna have this soul bond and then like, oh yeah, it could just be somebody else. Like, I had such a deeply hard time with that. I literally could not understand why the human would come into my field if the soul connection was not meant to be. And I'm sharing that with you because if that's what you're moving through, I just, first of all, I want to acknowledge that. It's like deeply, deeply painful. It's really, really difficult. And the truth is when you heal the wound, you'll let go of the human. Like, that is the truth. Or the human will show you, like, the human is showing you something. The human is showing you the behavior. The soul is giving you the activation. So when you recognize that and then you're healing the wound, then that is the activation to then free yourself of the human, right? Now you're freeing yourself from that cycle, that contract, and it's not just that person. That's the thing. It's the cycle. Like I said, the chasing, right? Fighting for love. I had to break that, right? Because I was taught that I had to fight for love. That nothing I did was, like, good enough to be loved, right? I always had to prove my worth, my value. Or if I did the wrong thing, then I wasn't shown love. right? And so I constantly was performing for love. And that's how that's how I was with this last man. I was literally trying to like show my worth, show my value. And this bond was so deeply painful for me to release and move through because it was the final wound, the final freeing of my heart. And I can tell you right now, when I finally freed my heart from that experience, it is fucking profound. So fucking profound. I was so mad at my own soul. I'm telling you. I think I made a video about this before. I was literally like, you're a fucking cruel bitch. How could you do this to me? Like, I was so mad at my own soul, right? Because I was like, telling myself, like, I don't know what I just did with the lighting, but I was telling myself that this was my person, but it was my own soul's riddle, right? My soul put me through my own soul container. And he was merely a mirror for me to recognize that, right? So when I finally released myself from this, right? It's not like I don't have to try anymore. Like, I will never fight for love again. I will never fight to be valued, to be seen. I will never try to get a man, to be seen by a man, to like I truly release the longing. I truly release the wanting. I truly release the feeling of being locked out from love. I truly released myself from feeling like I had to fight to be seen, to be loved, to be valued, right? That was the gift. That was the gift. And I actually know now, because even when that, like I said, when the last one came through, I was like so adamant, because this is how, like, this is the wounding, right? I was so adamant, like, don't bring him into my field. I don't want to get involved with, like, right? It was like a fear-based feeling, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to bring this human in and be hurt again and all these things. And it's like, I truly release myself from that. Like, I know now when my actual counterpart comes into my field, that he's gonna be the one who's like, wow, you're incredible. Like absolutely, like he's just gonna show up. You know what I mean? Because otherwise I'm not gonna fuck with you. That's the win. That's the gift. Right? I will never fuck with another man again who is not him. And I'll know him because he's going to show up and continue to show up and be there and see me and value me and know me and honor me. And I'm not going to fight for that. Not even for a fucking second am I going to fight for that, because I healed that wound and I don't need to. And not only that, now I've released myself from that energy. So I'm never even going to fucking attract that into my field again, right? So this is why we bring through these activations, is to free ourselves from these dynamics, you know? It's not for, this is why I talk about, like, often, like, we get stuck thinking, like, God, like, we blame love. It's not love. It's our emotional wounding that needs to be healed. It's not love that's the issue. Love is not the problem. It's your wounding, right? So when we heal the wounds, then we actually make space for the love to come through, right? And then we're released from feeling like we don't have it or we're seeking it, right? Like, can you imagine thinking again that this was my person, being shown in every kind of way, and then finding out the truth, and then being like, feeling like I'm at square one again, you know what I mean? But like, I don't feel the same, even though I'm like at square one. It's like, it's not square. It's square one in an entirely new reality. It's square one from a place of actual connection with counterpart. It's me closing the door on this old world, these old dynamics, these old experiences where I wasn't being valued, where, you know, the soul bonds that I was bringing through were lessons, right? I closed the door on lessons. Okay? That was the journey in love. Was moving through what it means to love, what isn't love, what is codependency, what is emotional wounding, what are all of these things, right? Though this is why we attract those soul activations, to get us to the point where we can finally be released and even allow for our counterpart to come through. You're not even in the same energy if you're still in this wounded reality of self, where you're feeling locked out from love, where you're feeling like this is your person but they're not coming through for you. Like, your person's going to show up for you. I can promise you that. I can promise you that, right? And even people will be like, listen to these stupid fucking stories of people like, I wish I listened to less bullshit. I was just trying to understand, you know what I mean? I know you are. That's why I'm making this video, because there's just so much fucking trash. But people be like, oh yeah, like, yeah, totally, like, he disappeared and then he showed, you know, and then he came back into my life when he was ready. And it's like, if you truly honor yourself, you're not going to live by that story, right? And if that is a real story, and I've said this in another video, if that is a real story, then fine, but you still have to let go of the person. You know, like, if you're waiting on somebody, that's super fucking unhealed. It really is. And you got to be honest with yourself. That was one of the last things that I was like working through, that I had to solve the riddle. My soul wasn't going to solve the riddle. My soul made the riddle for me to solve. And I sat here and I said, well, if this is the truth, then why does it look like that? This isn't what the truth looks like. If this is really my person, then why isn't he showing up? Well, he's not your person, right? The red flags are real. You know, if you really look at it, you were like, oh my God, no, none of this was right. It was just for me to heal what was not right, what was not real, right? So that was my message. Well, why does it look like this? Because it's not fucking real. But my soul had to show me it was real so that I believed this story, so that I could free myself from that maze, right? And this, like, your soul's doing this for you. Like I said, my initial thing was like, you're a cool bitch. And now I'm like, so grateful. I am so grateful that my soul held me to a higher standard of myself, to claim my self-worth, and claim what I want in love. I am so grateful that my soul put me through that so I could claim it's meant for me and not get stuck in a fucked up, toxic ass fucking bond with someone who was never going to honor me. I am so grateful that my soul put me through that. This was some really fucked up shit that my soul put me through. But I had to go through that to release myself, right? Those are the activations. So, you know, I know it sounds frustrating and annoying to be like, oh, like, you gotta let go of the human, but you're only gonna let go of the human when you recognize the wound that you're attaching to that human, right? So, the truth is, like, I'm grateful to all these men. They opened doorways for me. They were activations for me, you know? They helped me get there. And I activated them in entirely other different ways, right? And, like, that is the journey. Just like any encounter we have with other souls, like, everything is a lesson or a win, or, like, we're interacting with people for a reason. And when we get out of this delusion of externalizing the experience and come into recognition of our own experience and why we're attracting things into our life, that's when we can truly recognize why soul activations are happening, why people are coming through our field. What is this person bringing into my field, and why? What are they activating in me? What are they triggering in me? What is wrong with this story? Why am I stuck in a story that isn't mine? Right? Why am I stuck in a bond where I'm not being recognized? Why am I stuck in a bond where I'm not being valued, right? So these are all the things that I talk about in relation to emotional healing, right? And this is just a deeper layer of it. If you're moving through these woundings on a soul level, it's just a deeper activation of the same thing. Like, truthfully, you're just on a deeper journey of healing. And it's really, really tough. But also, it's really, really powerful. You're gaining something really, really powerful out of this. And number one, being your own power and soul sovereignty. And I had talked about this in another video, but this is why the feminine has to go first. Because the feminine has for so long compromised for the masculine, right? These were all the past storylines, all the past timelines where I had sacrificed as the feminine. And so I wasn't going to live that in this lifetime. I wasn't, and I'm not, right? So I had to bring through men that were going to show me how I was not going to be treated so that I could put the dead to rest and never bring it into my life again. So it really is up to you to choose that. It's really up to you to choose. And as the feminine, we are being called to lead in this, to step fully into our power. That is the only energy that's going to attract your true masculine counterpart. When we step into that, then we also hold the masculine accountable to step into his highest self as well and meet us there. We are not going to continue the storyline of self-sacrifice, right? So if you're in a bond where you feel locked out from love, you feel like someone's your person, where you're having these insane soul activations, soul codes, soul bonding, and you're like, why is this not lining up with my human? I'm sorry, but you are in a bond that needs to be healed. You're in an activation bond, something that is calling for you to heal the wound, activate your soul, and step deeper into alignment with what's meant for you. And the faster you can recognize that, then the faster you can step out of being stuck in a toxic reality and fully step into alignment with someone who can match you, who can honor you, right? Because if you're healed, you're not watching videos on how do I get this man to see me? How do I get, like, how do I move, right? That's all wounding. When is this man gonna, and this is the story all this time of the woman waiting by the phone, right? That's what we're healing, right? If you're in this, where is my person? Why isn't he called? All these things. That's the wounding. A woman in her power is not waiting by the phone. Okay? A woman in her power is not waiting by the phone. Right? Because the truth is, you're either going to show up for me or you're not. Men playing these stupid little, and not men, boys playing these stupid little games of like, oh, I'm going to like lead her on, I'm going to text her and then not say anything and be super vague and be super weird and being really distant and runner energy, right? That is so fucking unhealed. Recognize that. That is an unhealed little boy. That's not a man. A man does not show up in that way. You understand? That's not how a man shows up in the world. A man shows up in recognition of who he is and what he wants. A man knows his counterpart when he sees one, right? He's going to recognize her, and or he's going to, maybe he won't recognize her right away. You know what I mean? But if he's interested in you, is what I would say. If he's a real man, if he's interested in you, he's going to make himself known. He's going to be clear and direct with you and express truth to you. A man in distortion is not going to do those things. He's going to be elusive and weird and distant and disconnected and make you feel like there's something wrong with you or that you're off or that you're doing too much, or these are all games. These are all fucking manipulation. If you are interacting with somebody like this, then there's a wound there. You are being activated through wounding to recognize this and release this and step into your power, right? And I'm not just talking talk, right? Because there's some men who will do this. It's still manipulation, and they're like, oh, I'm very interested in da 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 da, right? But his actions say otherwise. I'm talking about action. I'm talking about a man who shows up through consistency in his words, in his actions. Those align. His actions, his words, his behavior, how he treats you, these are consistent and aligned, right? A man who is all over the place or treating you weird or making you feel weird or whatever this kind of shit is, this is all wounding, right? And he's not the only one wounded. You are. You are wounded, right? You attracted each other to heal this wound, to be released. You both have a choice. You both have a choice. You know? And it's not dependent on each other. You both chose to activate each other. They can choose to not take the activation. You can choose to take the activation and move on with your life. Very common. Very common, right? Most common, actually. Most common. That people are given an opportunity to activate and they choose to deactivate and go into a lower karmic timeline, right? So when these people come through, you're being offered a choice. And it breaks my heart because I work with people who have an opportunity to choose a different timeline. And they don't. They stay stuck. And then they go and get stuck in a dynamic with a karmic cycle, with a karmic person, because they're not choosing their own power. They're not choosing themselves. And they're not choosing to step into a higher timeline. So you are choosing your own timeline, independent of this person. And so that's the truth, is that when you free yourself, then you can actually step into alignment with somebody who can actually match you where you're at in your highest timeline, and it is attraction. So you're not going to attract this man you want until you've healed the wounds to meet him, right? That's the truth. And you're not going to it's like this, right? Like you're going to keep attracting the wound until you heal it. When you heal it, you're an entirely different energy, which attracts a different energy, right? It's all frequency. It's all aligning for reasons, right? So you got to look at the frequency of what you're attracting, the dynamics you're attracting, the wounding that you're in, the activation of the wounding, right? Because it's often because when we're in distortion, because we're trying to come to unity, right? So the distortion is like a duality, right? Like I said, or like if you're an overgiver, you attract a narcissist, right? If you're a chaser, you're attracting a runner, right? So there's a duality where it's like two magnets facing the wrong way, right? When you come into the frequency of alignment, it's magnetic and it works, it aligns, it's a frequency. So it's a very different energy. You've got to heal these wounds to even get there. And people are the only way there. Sadly, it's the truth. It's deeply painful, but moving through humans and different frequencies is how we heal this. This is why dating, like people are always like, it's the same thing, like I said, in the human form of like, you know, we date people and, you know, we're like, oh, this person is, you know, like we create all these stories around a storyline of like somebody that we dated, and it's like, you know, it's like we create that as a mark rather than recognizing that we're growing and we're learning from that. Like, oh, this is the story of this person I dated, and therefore this story, right? Instead of being like, okay, no, like this relationship taught me these things. This is how I was showing up in this relationship. Here's the ways that I maybe wasn't recognized. Here's maybe the ways that I didn't recognize someone else. Here's the ways I was showing up in wounding. Here's how I was being treated, right? They're all lessons. Not every person you date is going to be the fucking one, right? So the same thing with soul bonds. Like, we're having that experience to recognize what it is, heal it, and then step deeper into alignment with what is actually for us. Okay, so I really hope this was helpful, because I don't know, I wish that there was more people making legitimate videos on soul bonds, and that's why I want to put this out there for people on that journey, and coming into trying, working to come into alignment with themselves and a counterpart and their match, and tired of hearing the BS, and like wanting truth on your experience, and wanting to heal and wanting to move through that, and the truth is it's painful. I literally spent an entire year crying almost every day, literally. And it wasn't over this man. It was over the wound he activated in my heart. There was longing and locked out from love. He activated and triggered my abandonment wound on the deepest level, right? And that healing was my heart. It was my abandonment wound. He was only the activation. It was only the activation, but I needed that activation to heal the abandonment, to be released of that in my heart, and step into a different place, right? So, all I can say is you got to look at your own wounding and your own experience. You got to recognize with this person, and a lot of it is just starting with, sometimes literally just bawling your fucking eyes out over the pain. That is the heart opening journey, right? We so deeply want to bury the heart and suppress the feelings of the heart. That's our collective MO, is how deeply can I bury the wounds of the heart and not address them? So when you finally open these deep, deep wounds, because the heart wounds, right? They go back, lifetimes, and then born into in the womb space and born into this world, right? You're carrying those wounds since birth, since, old timelines, right? You're bringing it into this life. And so it travels with you, and it's being brought up in this lifetime for you to heal it and release it. So it's the deepest wound, because you've been stuck in that wound for however many millennials, centuries, lifetimes, whatever, dude. It's so deep and it's so painful. And yes, some of those cries were unfathomable. My heart hurt so bad. I could not comprehend the pain of my heart. Right? And I had to just cry and cry and cry and hold space for my own heart until I was finally released from abandonment, and simultaneously, right? Simultaneously learning how to show up for myself, being in my power, getting my needs met, not abandoning myself, right? So part of it is the healing, part of it is reprogramming and building trust with yourself to show up for yourself. How are you showing up for yourself in the world, right? So those journeys are happening simultaneously, but so much of the work is sitting in your own heart space, sitting with that wound and recognizing where it's coming from, why you're holding it, and then creating a different way for yourself so that you can create a different way for partnership, right? Okay. All right, my friends, if you would like to book a session with me, I am available. You can also buy me a coffee if you appreciate this video on the link below. Please like and subscribe if you have not. It helps me grow my channel and continue to make videos for you. And I truly hope this is helpful on your soul journey. I know it is deeply painful and deeply, deeply challenging. And, we'll see. Maybe I'll put out some more videos on this topic, because it really is a lot to move through. It really, really is. So sending you lots of love and healing on your path.